Welcome back to QuickSpeak, your English podcast for when you really want to get into interesting stuff. Ever feel like you're super stoked about something new, a project or a goal, and then poof, the enthusiasm just vanishes?
Happens to the best of us.
Today we're tackling that very question. Why is it so hard to finish what we start?
It's a question with layers,
Right.
like peeling back an onion.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's start peeling. And I have a feeling this first layer might surprise some people. We're starting with perfectionism.
Perfectionism.
Now, I know it seems kind of counterintuitive. Wouldn't wanting things to be perfect make you more likely to finish them?
You'd think so, right? But here's the thing, aiming for absolute perfection, it can actually stop you from even starting.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Imagine you've got this vision in your mind, the end result, flawless, perfect. Now, how easy is it to actually begin when you're faced with that standard?
Yeah, it's like you're frozen, too scared to mess it up.
Exactly. That fear of not measuring up, it's paralyzing, leads to procrastination, endless planning, this feeling of not being ready yet.
The irony is that pursuit of perfection, it often leads to, well, not so perfect results.
Right. You get so caught up in the tiny details, the fear of making a mistake, you stifle creativity, increase stress. You might even burn out before you even really get going.
It's like that saying, perfect is the enemy of good. But, and maybe I'm weird here, the idea of not aiming for perfection feels, wrong. Like we're giving ourselves permission to be mediocre.
I get it. And it's important to make that distinction. It's not about settling for mediocrity. It's about shifting your perspective a bit.
Okay, I like where this is going.
Instead of perfection, what if we focused on progress, on growth? Each step, even the missteps, those are opportunities to learn, to refine. That's how we actually improve and get meaningful results.
Makes you think about all those unfinished projects just gathering dust because we were too scared to make that first imperfect move.
It's a common thread for sure.
Okay, so we've tackled perfectionism, but there's another sneaky culprit we got to talk about. The allure of the new. You know that rush of excitement when you start something new?
Oh yeah, I know that feeling.
That, my friends, is dopamine at work.
Our brains, they love novelty. It's like a built-in reward system. We get that dopamine hit, we feel good, and we want more of that feeling.
The problem is that initial burst, it fades as the novelty wears off and the work gets tougher,
Happens every time.
which is usually right around the time that another new thing pops up, tempting us with another dose of that dopamine.
And we're back on the dopamine roller coaster.
And before you know it, we're stuck in this cycle, starting projects, but rarely finishing them. Dopamine chasers, hopping from one exciting new thing to the next.
Leaving a trail of unfinished business in their wake.
Ugh, tell me I'm not the only one. My brain sees a shiny new project and it's like, ooh, adventure.
A story as old as time.
But it's not just our brains working against us, is it? Hey, folks.
You're telling me, in this age of information overload, our attention is precious. We're bombarded with notifications, emails, social media. It's a wonder any of us get anything done.
Seriously,
Yeah.
you try to focus and your phone's like having a midi rave in your pocket.
Always something vying for our attention.
Speaking of distractions, did you know the average person loses over 2 hours every single day to distractions?
It's a scary thought when you think about it, all those lost hours, weeks, months, even years.
Okay, so we've got perfectionism making us afraid to start, the allure of the new constantly tempting us away, and a digital world vying for our attention every millisecond. It's like we're setting ourselves up for failure from the get-go. But don't despair just yet. Coming up after a quick break, we'll delve into 2 more culprits that might be sabotaging your best efforts: imposter syndrome and decision fatigue. Stay with us. It's funny, we often talk about wanting to be more productive, more disciplined,
Right.
but how often do we actually stop and think about what's going on up here?
Yeah.
Like inside our heads.
Inside.
It's like we're so focused on the doing that we forget about the being.
That's such a good point. We're not robots. We're
Right.
humans, and we've got all these emotions and thoughts and experiences that shape how we do everything.
Exactly. Okay, so before the break, we were talking about those sneaky things that can totally derail even our best intentions. We covered perfectionism, the dopamine rush of new things, and the never-ending distractions of our digital world.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. But we're not done yet, are we? Let's talk about 2 more. Imposter syndrome and decision fatigue. And these might seem less obvious
Right.
than, a phone buzzing with notifications.
Sure.
But trust me, they could be just as powerful. Let's start with imposter syndrome. Can you kind of paint a picture for our listeners of what this looks like in action?
Okay, so imagine this. You've just achieved something big, right? Like you got a promotion, finished a huge project, maybe you finally reached a personal goal. But instead of feeling proud, you're hit with this wave of doubt. You feel like a fraud, like you don't deserve the success, and everyone's going to find out that you're not as capable as they think you are.
Ugh, that feeling is the worst. It's like this voice in your head saying, you just got lucky, or they're going to figure you out any minute now.
Yes,
Not exactly motivating, is it?
not at all. Imposter syndrome, it can really hold you back. You might procrastinate, sabotage yourself, or not even try new things because you're so afraid of failing.
So how do we quiet that inner critic? Because I don't know about you, but logic doesn't always work on those voices in my head.
You're right, logic isn't always enough. But there's some things we can try. One thing is to practice reframing our thinking.
Okay, I like that word, reframing.
Mm.
How do we actually do that? Because it feels so real in the moment.
It's about choosing to see the situation from a different point of view.
Okay,
So, for example, instead of thinking a success was just luck,
right.
challenge yourself to see the role your skills and hard work played in that.
So instead of, oh, I just got lucky this time, I might say, you know what? I put in the work, I showed up, and I deserve to celebrate this.
Exactly. It might feel weird at first, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. You're basically teaching your brain to focus on the good and own your wins.
Like building a new mental muscle, one positive thought at a time. Okay, so we've got reframing our thinking. Any other tips for dealing with imposter syndrome?
Another big one is to reach out to people you trust. Friends, family, mentors.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need someone to remind you that you're not alone and to give you a fresh perspective.
That's so true. Sometimes we need our own personal cheer squad
Yes.
to remind us how awesome we are. Okay, so we've covered perfectionism, the allure of the new, distractions, and imposter syndrome. Now for the final boss.
Decision fatigue. I gotta say,
Yeah.
this one really gets me. By the end of a long day, my brain is fried.
I think we've all been there.
It's like I can't make one more decision.
And it's not just you, it's a real thing.
Is it really?
Yeah, decision fatigue. Our brains can only make so many choices in a day.
And as the day goes on, we get tired and we start making impulsive decisions, or worse, we just avoid making any decisions at all. And that just leads to us feeling stuck.
Like my brain hits overload, and even picking what's for dinner feels impossible. So how do we fight this?
Wow.
More sleep, kale smoothies.
Those are always good, but there are some more specific things we can try.
Okay.
One that's surprisingly helpful is to actually limit the number of choices you need to make in a day.
Wait, really? Limit our choices? I don't know about that.
No, it seems counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
But think about how much energy you spend just deciding what to wear each morning or what to have for breakfast.
Oh gosh, way too much. Sometimes I stand in front of my closet for like an hour.
Exactly.
That overwhelmed.
And that's just one small thing. Now multiply that by all the decisions we make in a day.
Exhausting, right?
Yeah, actually it is.
So if we make some of those decisions ahead of time,
Oh, I see.
we free up space in our brains for the important stuff later. Okay, that actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So like meal prepping for the week or having a set morning routine.
Exactly. Even just organizing your desk
Huh.
to reduce visual clutter. These small things can make a big difference over time.
It's like creating calm in the chaos.
Yes.
I like it. Okay, so we've covered a lot today, from perfectionism to decision fatigue. It's a lot to process, right? Like, do we need to become productivity robots or something?
Not at all. It's not about being perfect. It's about understanding how our minds work.
Right.
And using that knowledge to make things a little easier on ourselves.
It's about progress, not perfection.
Exactly.
I love that. It's about giving ourselves a break. You know, we're all just figuring things out as we go.
We are all a work in progress.
So true. So as we wrap up this episode of QuickSpeak, what's one big takeaway you hope our listeners will remember from today?
Oh, that's a good question. You know, if I had to pick one, it would be kind to yourself. We've talked about a lot today, and it's easy to feel overwhelmed. But remember, this isn't about some crazy level of productivity. It's about understanding yourself, recognizing your patterns, and finding small changes that you can actually stick with.
Beautifully said. We all need to hear that sometimes. So tell us, what resonated with you most today? Have you experienced any of these things? Share your thoughts in the comments. We love hearing from you. And while you're there, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future episodes where we explore more fascinating topics, just like this one. Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and you've got this. It's about giving ourselves a little grace, right? Like, we're all works in progress, figuring things out as we go.
Absolutely. We're human, not machines.
Right.
And that's okay. In fact, it's what makes us interesting,
Yeah.
adaptable, capable of incredible things.
I love that perspective. So as we wrap up this episode of QuickSpeak, I'm curious, what's one thing you hope our listeners will take away from today's conversation?
Oh, that's a good question. If I had to pick one, it would be kind to yourself. We've covered so much today, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. But this isn't about, reaching some crazy level of productivity. It's about understanding yourself better, recognizing your own patterns, and making small changes, ones you can actually stick with.
Beautifully said. We all need that reminder sometimes. So tell us, what resonated with you today? Have you experienced these challenges? Share your thoughts in the comments. We love hearing from you. And while you're there, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our future deep dives on all sorts of fascinating topics. Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and you got this.